Hey folks, tonight we're embarking on a journey that's a bit grimy. This isn't some grand time-traveling expedition or an exploration of ancient tombs. It's a night in, a medieval tavern, a place that's loud, smoky, and sometimes a bit smelly, but it's the quiet heart of every town. It's the unofficial news center, the only place where a knight, a peasant, and a poet can get drunk together, fall over each other, and then raise a toast again, as if they never argued. There's more than just ale here. There's danger, laughter, hiccups, toasts, and disease, all mingling freely under one thatched roof. So, before you get too comfortable, take a second to like the video and subscribe to the channel, but only if you truly like what I'm telling you here. And don't forget to leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from and what time it is on your side of the world. It's always fascinating to see who's raising a glass with us from all over now. Dim the lights, turn on a small fan for a gentle hum like the buzzing of flies in the tavern, and join me on tonight's journey. One night in a tavern from the age before soap. Have you ever been to a modern bar where hazy purple lights shine on a cocktail named like a sad song? Well, a medieval tavern has nothing to do with that. The only light here comes from a smoke-breathing fireplace, not LEDs. The fire dances, licking at the damp logs, making small, crackling sounds, occasionally spitting a spark onto the dirt floor. And no, there's no DJ booth. At best, there's some nameless fellow tapping a spoon on an empty ale cask as if summoning spirits, creating a monotonous, aimless rhythm. You step inside, or rather, you stumble in, because the heavy wooden door is off its hinges. The sound of hinges has been replaced by the whistling of the wind through the cracks and the musty smell of the last century. The cold night air rushes in at your heels, but is immediately stopped by the thick wall of sound and smell inside. Your eyes need a moment to adjust to the darkness, to distinguish the moving shapes in the hazy smoke. The floor is packed earth, perhaps once level, before thousands of drunken footsteps turned it into a battlefield of torn shoes and chicken bones. On top of it, they've scattered dry straw, not for comfort, but to hide what no one wants to see. With every step, the straw rustles, kicking up a fine dust and the smell of damp earth, spilled ale, and forgotten secrets. Underfoot, you can feel the unevenness, hard as rock in some places, suspiciously soft in others, and you smell this place before you see it. The smoke from the fireplace mixes with human breath to form a kind of indoor fog. It stings your eyes and makes you wonder if you're inhaling the soul of someone who passed out here last night. The smell is a symphony of layers. The bass note is the scent of damp firewood, making the whole room feel like it just survived a forest fire, clinging to your hair, your cloak, to every fiber of the wooden tables. On top of that is the stench of naturally fermented ale and wine. Natural here means whatever could be made to bubble. It's the sharp sourness of yeast, the cloying sweetness of malt, and the bitter tang of wild hops. And the final topping is the smell of people, the sweat of laborers who've toiled all day in the fields, the leather and grease from the mercenaries' armor, the smell of armpits, of shoes, of hair unwashed since the king was young. The furniture? If you call the rickety pile of wood under you a table, don't be surprised if the chair you're sitting on was once a small coffin. They are crudely hewn, covered in knife-carved names, crude drawings, and scorch marks from fallen embers. The chairs creak with every movement, as if trying to warn you. Don't sit too long. I can't take it. And the tables are as tilted as the morals of a night market peddler, making your cup of ale constantly threaten to spill. In the midst of this chaos, there is a ruler who needs no crown. She has a kitchen towel stained with sauces from 3 winters ago, and a gaze that can silence a mercenary with a single frown. No one knows her name. Some call her Mother Bear, others the Growler. But all agree on one thing. She is the law, the court, and justice, all wrapped up in an iron ladle. She is not tall, but her shadow always seems to fall over the entire tavern. Her hands are as large as flagstones, capable of squeezing a lemon with one hand and someone's neck with the other. The veins on her hands stand out like a river map, and every path leads to an unannounced slap. She doesn't need to say much. A look is enough. A fellow trying to hide a loaded die. Her gaze cuts across him. He startles, sits down, and pulls the die from his boot, placing it on the table like a penitent before a judge. A drunkard getting handsy with a barmaid. No need for shouting. She just taps a wooden spoon against an ale cask, a single, dry thuck. The sound, amidst the din, rings out with clarity, and the man immediately knows he'll be sleeping under a table if he doesn't retract his hand. Once, a self-proclaimed nobleman walked in, shoes polished, cloak as clean as if it had never touched the ground. He smirked at the grimy patrons and boasted, "Does anyone here know who I am?" The landlady, wiping a wooden cup, paused. She looked up at him with her emotionless eyes, unblinking. Then she turned and yelled to the kitchen, her voice booming like thunder, "There's a pig lost from the royal sty." The whole tavern erupted in rough, gleeful laughter. The nobleman's face turned beet red. He fell silent. Then he paid, double the usual price, and ate his soup like a wet cat. That story became a legend in the tavern. Every night, someone retells it, adding a few more details each time. By now, there's a version where she threw the entire stew pot at his head and forced him to wash dishes for 3 weeks. Though no one dares to verify it, she knows everyone's name, even if no one remembers ever introducing themselves. Perhaps this tavern is a memory trap, where each regular is held captive by the smell, the taste, and the fear of the landlady. But some also say that on a cold winter's night, when snow muffled the world outside and the bard's song had died down, she brought out an old woolen blanket of her own and covered a shivering beggar child sleeping in the corner. No one dared to ask, and she never explained. But from then on, that child was allowed to stay and help in the kitchen, and no one ever dared complain about his soup, even when there was something strange in the pot. One thing never changes in this tavern. The patrons are always strange, and no one is ever completely sober. In the corner near the fireplace sits a mercenary, cradling his steel helmet like an old lover. His face is a road map of scars. It's unclear whether from battle or from failing to pay his ale tab on time. He keeps mumbling old stories, every sentence beginning with "back in Calais," though no one is sure he even knows where Calais is. On the other side is a friar, his robes soaked with spilled wine, reciting poetry while kissing the barmaid's hand as if giving a blessing. He's known as Father Tumble, because after 3 cups, he topples over like a statue in the wind. In another corner is a merchant, hands full of rings, mouth full of lies. He claims to have sold camels in Egypt, rice to the Emperor of China, and his sister to a wizard. No one believes him, but no one dares to argue, because he always has 2 silent bodyguards with him, and a brick. At a decaying wooden table near the window sits a man hiding from his wife, or at least from the place where he's expected to do chores. He drinks as if trying to turn himself into pure alcohol to avoid being recognized. Whenever someone mentions the name Martha, he shudders as if cursed. And then there's always a storyteller, thin, with disheveled hair, sitting by the fire as if born from the smoke. His stories are better than today's soup, and he can silence the entire tavern for at least 3 minutes before someone throws a chicken bone at his head just for fun. There are also a bearded man who always sits facing the wall, just drinking and nodding. A group of off-duty guards, the smell of their armor stronger than the smell of the ale. And an old woman selling good luck charms, pulling feathers from her coat to read the omens. Each person is a miniature of the age, a living piece of memory that no history book would dare to record. They don't come here for the food, not for the comfort. They come for the permission to temporarily forget who they are, at least until morning, or until the landlady throws a ladle at their head. You ask, "Do you have any good ale?" The landlady looks at you as if you've just asked, "Is there Wi-Fi here?" and silently places a wooden tankard, bigger than your head, in front of you. It contains a dark brown liquid with lazy bubbles on top and something floating in it. Could be an onion skin, could be a dead mosquito, could be the curse of a former customer. This is brown ale, the thing medieval people drank instead of water, because the water was even dirtier. There's also mead, sweet as the promises of a dice player, but with an aftertaste like being stung on the tongue. Cider sounds pleasant until you learn the yeasty smell comes from them leaving rotten apples in the attic for 2 weeks, waiting for flies to gather, then filtering it through an old pair of trousers. The cider ferments, and you get a fever. Elsewhere, they might call this traditional brewing. Here, they call it an unofficial liver test. These drinks are served in wooden cups, cracked but not yet leaking, hollowed out cow horns, feels like drinking the blood of a demon, or hastily rinsed soup bowls, both convenient and disgusting. There's no ice, no straws, just yeast, bacteria, and a prayer. There's also a special brew for the nobility, or for anyone who claims to be noble after 3 cups. Malt liquor infused with star anise, with a sprig of some herb dunked in, rumored to cure all ailments, including consciousness. Some people pass out at the table after drinking it, mumbling in Latin, then get up and dance as if possessed. The rest just watch, laughing and betting on where he'll throw up. The alcohol here isn't industrially produced. It's raised, like a dog, and sometimes it bites back. But strangely, no one complains. Because in an age where marriages are arranged, bathing is a luxury, and dying of diarrhea is common. Getting voluntarily drunk is a rare indulgence. You don't drink to forget. You drink to know you're still alive. In a medieval tavern, the food isn't listed on a menu, because there is no menu. You don't order. You accept your fate. The main course is yesterday's soup, and the day before's, and maybe last week's. A huge, soot-black cast-iron pot sits simmering by the fireplace, looking like an ancient well that if you stare into it for too long, will stare back. The steam rises, colorless and odorless. But one taste is a memory for life. They call it stew, but it could just as well be turnips, chicken bones, fish heads, or whatever the landlady didn't recognize and threw in. Someone swore they once saw a fingernail. It comes with bread, which is both food and a weapon. No knife? No problem. Just smash the bread against the table's edge and it will break. Not the bread, the table. The bread here is as hard as mountain rock. People use it to scoop up soup, block a knife, or as a pillow if no one else claims it first. If you drop the bread on the floor, rest assured, it won't absorb any moisture because it can't absorb anything at all. Sometimes there's cheese, the kind that could walk off the plate on its own. A cheese aged so long it has developed its own personality. A child once called it the breathing grandfather. The rind is as dry as a snake's back, while the inside bubbles gently, a clear sign of life or of something lurking. Each bite is a journey for the taste buds, from sweet to sour to metallic, and then the screen goes black. Spices depend on who coughed or sneezed near the pot. There's no pepper, no Himalayan sea salt, just ash, the wind, and a hunch. And of course, everything is eaten from the same bowl, sometimes an overturned helmet. You use your hands mostly. Napkins are a concept from the future. You don't eat here to be full. You eat to survive. If you survive the meal, you get to tell the tale. If not, well, no one is surprised. Once the ale has soaked in, the entertainment begins. The storyteller stands in the middle of the room, his fur cloak shedding in patches, his voice louder than a church bell, but his tales more twisted than a tax collector. He claims to have met a dragon, to have defeated Vikings with a song. Each telling adds new details, as if his past is an endless remix. The audience is bewildered, half believing, half wanting to smash a chair. The bard, with his 3-stringed lute, the 4th string was chewed off, stands in a corner, eyes half closed, singing a ballad about a village maiden and a goat. The sound of the lute is as strangled as if it's being choked. But he keeps singing, because if he stops, the throwing will begin. Someone throws a cask lid, someone else an undercooked sausage, but an old man in the corner is nodding along, silently weeping. Maybe he misses his goat, or maybe he's just lost his sense of taste. 2 men play dice in a corner, one with a pierced beard, the other with no left eye. They throw the dice as if summoning spirits. The long shakes of a hand are like a sermon. The look before the release is tighter than a bowstring. One laughs like he's found treasure. The other screams that the dice can talk. A drunken knight once bet his entire suit of armor on a final roll. He lost. Now, he's the waiter without a uniform. Then come the medieval bets. 2 pennies say that bard is a woman in disguise. I'll bet my right shoe that one belonged to the king. I dare you to taste the soup a second time. Every bet is a gateway to chaos. Sometimes it ends in a hug, or a pillow made from a burlap sack flying at someone's face. In the taverns of that age, entertainment wasn't about quality. It was about risk. You never knew if you'd laugh until your sides hurt or get hit by a flying chicken bone. But one thing was certain. You would remember it. Don't expect roses, wine, or candlelight. In a medieval tavern, romance begins with a burp and ends with a punch, if things go well. First, and only glance. She sits in the corner, her hair matted with sweat and kitchen smoke, her dress patched with burlap. He glances over, his eyes bloodshot from ale and dust. Their eyes meet like two flintstones, striking a small spark, along with the smell of raw garlic and winter ringworm. The first smile appears. It's missing a few teeth, but it's full of sincerity. The pickup lines, when language is an optional weapon. My lady, would you care to share the sleeping space under my table? Your hands, they look just like my mother's. That pimple on your nose, it's shaped like a heart, you know? There's no poetry, just compliments that, if you listen closely, are a clear sign to run. Things move fast. No room for shyness. If they both survive the first tankard of ale without cursing at each other, they might sleep in the same corner tonight. No one asks for a name. And no one asks, will I see you in the morning? Love here is like a roll of the dice. You throw it and see where it lands. The scent, the signature of the night. The perfume of the age consists of 3 days of unwashed sweat, raw garlic, kitchen smoke, and a hint of rotten cheese from dinner. If two people can face each other up close without fainting, that's true love. Romantic conflict, the way to say, you're mine, with a fist. A mistaken glance, a compliment, sent to the wrong address. A man who doesn't understand that no means no. And just like that, the third broken chair of the night goes flying. A sweet ending, or at least not a bloody one. The new couple might sleep together in the chicken coop behind the tavern, next to the passed-out friar and a dog of unknown ownership. Love needs no vows. As long as you don't beat each other to death, it's a healthy relationship. It's time. Clear the cups, pull back the chairs, and stay away from the wobbly tables. Because this part comes with no warning. It only has the sound of breaking pottery, shouting, and a sudden punch to the nose. In a medieval tavern, a brawl isn't an incident. It's a scheduled performance, like brushing your teeth in the morning, if anyone had enough teeth left to brush. The start is always something small, a look in the wrong direction, a joke that someone didn't find funny, a spilled tankard of ale on the wrong person's shoes, and then, boom, tables fly, chairs break, a leg of unknown ownership dangles from a rafter. Weapons? Almost everything. A wooden tankard for both drinking and bashing. A piece of bread as hard as a club. A dagger hidden in a sock. Chicken bones thrown like darts. An old woman with a ladle is no exception. Once, someone even saw a goose used as a mace. The audience and referee, the dog. The dog is the only neutral party. It barks, runs in circles, and bites randomly for fun. Sometimes it lies right in the middle of the scene, gnawing on an ear that fell off during the climax. The rules? They exist, but no one follows them. Don't hit a man while he's yawning. Don't punch a friar unless he starts it. Don't step in the soup. Don't spit ale into the fire. There was an incident that burned down half the tavern. All these rules are written in mud on the wall because parchment was expensive back then. The end is in an embrace or in blood. After the blood is dried, the teeth have rolled across the floor and the furniture has been put back together, more or less. Enemies become comrades. Sorry about that. I thought you were my brother-in-law. It's all right. I once punched my father-in-law by mistake. And then they raise a toast and continue getting drunk. It's time. The party's over. The ale is gone. The firelight dims. No more songs. No more laughter. Only the sound of snoring, the wind, and someone hugging a wooden cask like an old lover. There are no beds, no pillows, no soft linen sheets like in royal advertisements. Only the cold dirt floor, lumpy straw, and if you're lucky, a cloak of unknown origin. Sleeping positions are not by the book. A soldier sleeps with his head in a cold soup pot, his feet resting on a dog's back. A drunk lies unconscious under a table, his hand still gripping an empty cup, as if holding on to his destiny. A poet sleeps sitting up, his mouth still mumbling an unfinished love poem. You don't sleep here to rest. You sleep here to temporarily revive a living corpse. Sleeping companions. A cat lies in someone's helmet. A dog lies between two people hugging each other. It's unclear when they met. A goose is meditating next to a pile of ribs. No one questions it. The tavern is a place with no whys. Only, hey, that's fine. The sounds of the night. Breathing, steady, broken, or ragged, depending on alcohol tolerance. The wind whistling through the cracks in the walls. A groan of damn it as someone rolls over onto a hammer. A burp interspersed with a regretful moan about a poor choice of drink. Some are asleep, some are awake, some are sleepwalking in search of a toilet and end up lost in a field. No one asks the time. No one remembers last night. No one needs to. When they wake up in the morning, they won't know. Who won the dice game? Who hit whom? Who stole a kiss from whom? Who accidentally ate the piece of cheese that had legs? All that's left is a vague feeling that you're still alive. And maybe, just maybe, a new bruise on your forehead. There's one thing that only those who have woken up in a medieval tavern can understand. Dawn doesn't arrive with light, but with smell. The smell of yesterday's soup being reheated. The smell of smoke, of rotten wood, of pork fat, of burnt onions. It's the familiar smell that jolts you awake, even though your head hurts like a blacksmith is hammering inside your skull. And despite your taste buds betraying you, you still walk towards the soup pot as if mesmerized. Personal hygiene is a luxury. You rinse your mouth with leftover ale. You wash your face with rainwater collected in the eaves trough. You brush your teeth with, no, don't ask. You wake up with a tangled beard, bad breath, red eyes, but still ready for a new day that's no different from the last. The furniture is still a mess. A broken table is propped up with a wagon wheel. A chair has just been repaired with a nail pulled from an old coffin lid. Someone is still passed out on a table, oblivious to the turning world. The landlady's face is as cold as it was last night. Always the first to wake up. Always knows who hasn't paid. She wipes the tables with a rag that has a longer history than some dynasties. She doesn't say good morning. She just looks at you and nods. It's the only good luck surviving another day you're going to get. The first conversations of the day begin. Who did you punch last night? Don't remember, but my hand hurts. I dreamt someone was singing. That wasn't a dream. It was real, and it was terrible. No one clearly remembers what happened. Only a few bruises, the smell of smoke, and a hunger that rises like a tide. Dawn changes nothing, but that's what makes people come back. Not everyone comes to the tavern for fun. Some come to hide. Some come because other places are worse. And some come because here, at least, the madness is real. Perhaps when you wake up, stepping out of the tavern, the sun is just peeking over the smoke-stained thatched roofs. Perhaps you're still a bit dazed. Still can't tell if last night was real or just a very smelly dream. But one thing is certain, you will never forget that night. Not because the food was good. It wasn't. Not because the ale was excellent. It was more like bleach. Not because it was comfortable. You slept next to a dog scratching its fleas. But because in that place, everything was strangely authentic. In a world without phones, without social media, without neon lights, people lived closer together. They could smell each other, touch each other, spill ale on each other. They told jokes that didn't need a punchline. They fought over dice. They confessed their love by knocking out a tooth. And then, in the morning, they still greeted each other as if they hadn't almost killed each other the night before. Because long, long before people knew of cocktails, iced coffee, or group chats, there was the tavern. A place as loud as a flock of crows with a cold. A place so filthy that even bacteria had to wear armor. A place where laughter, tears, hiccups, and even the smell of sweaty feet shared the same table. And that place, strangely enough, was one of the last places where people could be people, in the truest sense. So, if one day you feel lost in this clean, modern world, imagine yourself sitting in a medieval tavern. You might not remember its name, but you will remember the feeling. And that feeling you will never forget. But let's leave the smell of ale and the noise behind for now. Because as every story ends, a new journey begins. From the damp darkness of Europe, we will travel to a land bathed in scorching sunlight, where the Nile River flows like a ribbon of turquoise silk through an endless desert. A place no longer filled with the toasts of common folk, but with the solemn silence of temples and mysteries buried by time. Chap 2. Queen Nefertiti and the mysteries of ancient Egypt. Forget the damp nights of Europe. Let your mind drift to a land bathed in scorching sunlight, where the Nile River flows like a ribbon of turquoise silk through an endless desert. This is Egypt, the kingdom of the pharaohs, of pyramids that touch the sky, and of gods with the heads of birds and beasts. In the millennia-long annals of this land, countless names have been carved into stone, into temples. But there is one name that, despite being systematically erased, still rises from the dust with a strange allure. A name that means the beautiful woman has come. Nefertiti. Before she arrived, Egypt was a mighty empire at the height of its power, but it was also quietly decaying from within. The 18th dynasty was in its golden age under the reign of Pharaoh Amenhotep III, a king who loved peace, art, and grand construction projects. Under his rule, Egypt was wealthier than ever. Gold from the mines of Nubia flowed in like water. Tributes from conquered lands in the Near East filled the treasuries. He had magnificent temples, built in Luxor, and colossal statues of himself erected, sitting majestically on the Theban plain. But parallel to the pharaoh's power, another force was growing stronger: the priesthood of the god Amun-Ra in the capital city of Thebes. Their Karnak temple was not just a religious center. It was an economic empire, owning vast tracts of land, controlling gold mines, and collecting enormous tributes. The priests of Amun had become a formidable political force, capable of influencing the very succession to the throne. They were the keepers of knowledge, the interpreters of the god's will, and through that, they held the soul of the nation. It was in this context of power struggle that a young prince named Amenhotep IV ascended the throne, bringing with him a vision that would shake Egypt to its core. And beside him was Nefertiti. Her origins remain shrouded in mystery. Was she Princess Taduhepa from the distant kingdom of Mitanni, sent to Egypt for a political marriage? Or was she the daughter of Ai, a powerful official who would later become a pharaoh himself? History does not give us a clear answer, only that she entered the royal family and quickly became a central figure. The name Nefertiti, or in full, Neferwatan Nefertiti, means more than just the beautiful woman has come. In the ancient Egyptian language, the word Nefer carries deeper meanings: goodness, perfection, harmony. Her beauty was not merely physical. It was the embodiment of cosmic order, of the perfection that the god Aten brought to the world. In countless statues and reliefs, she is seen with kohl-lined almond eyes, full lips parted in a mysterious smile, and a slender neck as graceful as a lotus flower. She often wore her distinctive blue crown, a flat-topped headdress wrapped with a multicolored ribbon, a unique symbol of power that no queen before or after her ever possessed. When we speak of her, the first image that often comes to mind is the famous bust, currently housed in Berlin. A face with perfect features, a proud, long neck, and sharply defined kohl-rimmed eyes, yet mysteriously missing one of its irises. That bust does not just capture a likeness, it captures power. It captures an icon that has survived over 3,000 years to tell us the story of an extraordinary woman. She was not just a beautiful queen standing in the shadow of her husband's throne. No, Nefertiti was a force in her own right. From the earliest years of the reign, she played an unprecedented role. In surviving reliefs, she is depicted as the king's equal. She performed religious rituals, a prerogative traditionally reserved for the pharaoh alone. She wore her unique blue crown, a symbol of near-equal authority. There are even depictions of her single-handedly smiting the enemies of Egypt, the ultimate symbolic role of a king. She was the mistress of Upper and Lower Egypt, the great royal wife, and most importantly, the pharaoh's equal partner in their great revolution. Their relationship was unlike any royal couple before them. Amarna art broke all the rules, depicting them not as distant gods, but as a real family. There are touching reliefs showing Akhenaten kissing Nefertiti, or the two of them sitting together with their 3 eldest daughters on their laps, under the blessing rays of the Aten. Nefertiti was not just a wife, she was his confidant, his co-regent, the one who shared his vision and his faith. They were 2 halves of a divine whole, the first creative couple of the new religion. That revolution began with the king changing his name. Amenhotep IV became Akhenaten, meaning effective for the Aten. Together with Nefertiti, he carried out a religious revolution unparalleled in history. They abolished the entire pantheon of old gods, from the mighty Amun-Ra to Osiris and Isis, to worship only one deity, the Aten, the sun god, represented by a solar disk whose rays ended in hands, each hand offering the Ankh, the symbol of life. This was not just a change in faith, it was a fatal political blow aimed directly at the power of the Amun priesthood. By eliminating Amun, Akhenaten stripped them of their power base and wealth. To make a complete break with the past, they abandoned the ancient capital of Thebes to build a new city in the middle of the desert, a place untainted by the worship of the old gods. That city was named Akhenaten, horizon of the Aten, known today as Amarna. It was built at a breathtaking pace, with vast open-air temples to allow the light of the Aten to shine everywhere, and with palaces and villas decorated in a completely new artistic style. Amarna art broke the rigid conventions of traditional Egyptian art. It depicted the royal family with astonishing naturalism and intimacy. Akhenaten and Nefertiti playing with their 6 daughters, tender gestures, everyday moments. Yet, at the same time, it portrayed them with strange physical features: elongated skulls, pot bellies, wide hips, and slender fingers. Was this a genetic reality, some kind of illness, or simply a new artistic convention to represent them as transcendent beings, different from ordinary mortals? In this new world, Nefertiti was the high priestess, the center of the cult. The Aten religion did not allow common people to communicate directly with the god. Only Akhenaten and Nefertiti could do that. They were the sole divine couple on earth, the bridge between the god Aten and humanity. She was the embodiment of the beauty and life that the sun bestowed. But then, around the 12th year of Akhenaten's reign, a strange silence fell upon the name of Nefertiti. She vanished. No explanation. No record of her death. No tomb ever found. Her name suddenly stopped appearing on monuments. It was as if a desert wind had blown through and erased every trace of the most powerful woman in Egypt. Instead, the name of her eldest daughter, Meritaten, began to appear alongside the pharaoh. What happened? Egyptologists have debated for decades, and each theory opens a new door into the labyrinth of history. The simplest theory is that she died. A plague is thought to have swept through Amarna around that time. Evidence for this is the death of their second daughter, Meketaten, recorded in heartbreaking reliefs in the royal tomb. Perhaps Nefertiti was also a victim of the epidemic, and her death, for some reason, was not recorded. But why not? Why would a queen revered as a goddess depart in such silence? Another theory suggests she fell from grace. Had the religious revolution gone too far, causing discontent among the people in the army? Had Nefertiti, as one of its architects, become a scapegoat? Or had a conflict arisen between her and Akhenaten? Some believe she may have returned to the old polytheistic faith, causing an irreparable rift with her fanatical husband. But there is no solid evidence of such a conflict. And then, there is a bolder, more captivating theory that Nefertiti did not disappear at all. She simply changed her identity. Towards the end of Akhenaten's reign, a mysterious figure appears as co-regent, a pharaoh named Neferneferuaten. This name is very similar to one of Nefertiti's own titles. Could it be that she was elevated to an unprecedented status, becoming a true pharaoh, ruling alongside her husband? Evidence comes from artifacts later found in the tomb of Tutankhamun. Many items, including the famous golden mask, appear to have been originally made for a predecessor, and there are signs they were adapted from objects intended for a female pharaoh. Could Nefertiti, after Akhenaten's death, have continued to rule alone under a new name, Smenkhkare, before passing the throne to Tutankhamun? The silence of history is fertile ground for these theories. But that silence was not accidental. After the deaths of Akhenaten and the brief reign of Tutankhamun, Egypt returned to the old gods. The Amun priesthood regained its power. Later pharaohs, like Horemheb, carried out a damnatio memoriae, a condemnation of memory, against the entire Amarna period. The names of Akhenaten, Nefertiti, and Tutankhamun were chiseled off from king lists. The city of Akhetaten was dismantled, its stones used for other buildings. They tried to completely erase this heretic dynasty from history, and they almost succeeded. For thousands of years, Nefertiti was just a shadow, until 1912, when the German archaeologist Ludwig Borchardt, excavating the ruins of the workshop of the sculptor Thutmose in Amarna, found it. The limestone bust, covered in a layer of painted stucco, was almost perfectly preserved. A forgotten face was suddenly reborn, and her beauty once again captivated the world. Our journey has taken us through a mystery carved in temple stone, a legacy of an individual almost erased by time. But history is not only written by kings and queens. Sometimes, the greatest legacy is not a tomb, but a hillside. It is not created by one person, but by countless generations. From the hot desert of Egypt, let us travel east, to the mist-shrouded mountains of Guangxi. Here, there are no colossal temples, but there is another wonder, a living wonder, woven from earth, water, and human hands over hundreds of years. A place called Longji, the dragon's backbone. Chap 3. Longji, rice terraces, the dragon's backbone. Take a deep breath. The air here is no longer dry and filled with the scent of desert sand. It is damp, fresh, carrying the fragrance of the earth, of plants, and of the morning dew. We are high in the mountains of Guangxi, where white clouds often drift lower than the wooden rooftops of the Yao people's homes, floating lazily like rivers in the sky. The melodious songs of birds echo from the dense nearby forests, and somewhere the sound of trickling water can be heard, an endless melody of life. And here, stretching as far as the eye can see, is one of the most spectacular man-made landscapes in the world, the terraced rice fields. These are not flat plains. They are winding steps that embrace the mountainsides, from the foot of the mountain all the way to its peak. From a distance, they look like the lines on a giant seashell, or like soft ribbons of silk draped across the heavens by some colossal being. They are called Longji, or the dragon's backbone, because when the terraces are filled with water, they shimmer under the sun like the scales on the spine of a mythical dragon, coiled in a deep slumber among the mountains. This is not a structure that was built overnight. It is the legacy of hundreds of years of silent labor. Its story begins during the Yuan dynasty, over 650 years ago. As the Mongol horsemen swept south, as wars and oppression from the imperial court made life in the plains unbearable, the Yao and Zhuang peoples made their way into the mountains. They were not searching for gold or silver, nor were they on a conquest. They were seeking a refuge, a place where they could plant rice and sustain their families in peace. They arrived here, facing steep mountainsides where the land was barren and treacherous. They had no machinery, no modern technology. They had only their calloused hands, simple tools like hoes and shovels, and an extraordinary perseverance passed down from one generation to the next. They saw the mountain not as an obstacle, but as a promise. They transformed a place that seemed impossible to cultivate into a granary. Every inch of soil, every stone was moved and leveled. A grandfather might spend his entire life carving out just a few small terraces. His son would continue, expanding a little further, digging the irrigation channels a little deeper, and his grandson would perfect it, reinforcing the banks, finding ways to make the water flow more evenly. Each terrace is a poem of patience. Each embankment is a testament to sweat and time. They created intricate irrigation systems, finding hidden springs on the mountaintops, and then using bamboo pipes or small earthen canals to guide the precious water down to irrigate each field with ingenious skill. Water flows from the higher terraces to the lower ones, a ceaseless cycle that sustains the entire hillside. The story of Longji is not the story of a single, brilliant individual like a king or a queen. It is the story of an entire community, of successive generations. The ancestors cleared the land, and their descendants cultivated it. They lived in harmony with nature, not to conquer it, but to depend on it. They understood the rhythms of the mountains and forests, of the rain and the sun. They knew when the water would come, when the young rice shoots needed to be planted, and when the golden rice was ready for harvest. Their lives are bound to the cycle of the terraces. Let us try to live a year with them, to see this living heritage breathe and transform. When spring arrives, after the cold winter days, the entire mountain region seems to awaken. This is the time they call Kai Guang Dianjing, awakening the dragon. The men of the village go up the mountain together, repairing the canals, clearing the waterways that have been blocked by leaves and soil over the winter. Then the most important ritual takes place. They open the first water gates. Cool water from above begins to flow, winding through the channels, filling each terrace. The water spreads, turning the dry fields into a giant mirror, shattered into thousands of pieces, each reflecting a patch of the blue sky. The air is filled with laughter, the sound of flowing water, and the splashing of water buffaloes wading through the mud. The men lead the buffaloes to plow, loosening the soil. Women and children follow, bending over to plant each young rice seedling with diligence. Their hands move swiftly, rhythmically, as if embroidering a green carpet onto the surface of the water. As summer comes, the pale green of the seedlings deepens into a lush, vibrant green of hope. The rice plants stretch and grow under the sun and the cool water. This is a time of quiet care. Every day, people wade into the fields to pull weeds and catch insects. They do not use pesticides. They use traditional methods, releasing ducks into the fields to eat the golden apple snails, or using fragrant herbs to repel insects. At night, the air is filled with a symphony of frogs and insects. Occasionally, a sudden summer shower will pour down, washing the mountains clean, bringing with it the worry of landslides that could wash away a year's hard work. But after the rain, the sky clears, and the rice plants seem to stand even stronger. Then comes autumn, the most beautiful season, the season of abundance. The entire mountainside transforms, from green to a brilliant gold. The heavy heads of rice bow in the wind, creating golden waves that ripple from the mountaintop down to the valley. This is a time of celebration, of the joy of harvest. The whole village comes out to the fields together, the swish of sickles cutting through stalks, the sound of cheerful chatter. They harvest the rice, thresh it to separate the grain, and then carry the heavy sacks on their backs, walking along the narrow terrace banks to bring it home. The sweet fragrance of new rice fills the air, mingling with the smoke from the kitchens of the wooden stilt houses. That evening, The meal cooked with the new rice has an extraordinary sweetness and aroma. It is the taste of the earth and sky, and the taste of sweat. And when winter arrives, after the harvest is complete, the rice terraces take on a different kind of beauty, a beauty of quiet contemplation. The bare stubble, sometimes covered with a delicate layer of frost in the early morning, looks like calligraphy strokes on the brown earth. The dragon seems to be resting peacefully. This is a time for rest. The men repair their tools and reinforce the terrace banks. The women sit at their looms, weaving intricate brocade fabrics with elaborate patterns. On long winter nights, families gather around the fire, listening to the elders tell ancient stories, legends of the mountain, of the dragon, and of the first people who came to this land. Life here flows on, slowly, resiliently, like the water in the small canals. It is a living heritage, a legacy not housed in a museum, but one that is still breathing, still changing with each season. This is a story of the harmony between people, nature, and time. A testament that with perseverance and respect, humanity can create beauty from the harshest of circumstances, writing a great epic not with ink, but with the very landscape they call home. Chap 4, The Underwater Sphinx, An Unanswerable Secret. My dear friend, after we have walked together through the terraced fields that ripple like a dragon's back in Longji, after we have gazed upon the proud and mysterious beauty of Queen Nefertiti, tonight I invite you not to ascend, but to descend, deeper and deeper, to the bottom of a river. Not all rivers are peaceful, and not all memories are written in words. There are secrets carved in stone, then carried away by the current. There are civilizations that did not vanish. They simply submerged, waiting for a day to be remembered. So, dim the lights, set aside the burdens of the day. Let the gentle sound of flowing water seep into your mind, like a lullaby. For now, we will sink together to the bottom of the Nile River, where a secret that has never been allowed to speak may lie waiting. The Nile. The name is like an ancient whisper. For thousands of years, this river has carried more than just silt. It carries the fragments of history, the fallen stories of dynasties, of myths, of sorrow, and of silence. The river has nourished all of Egypt, has shaped its villages, its seasons, and its empires. It is the source of life, a deity, a corridor for merchants, the foundation of ancient spiritual rites. But the Nile is also a cold guardian. It keeps what the sun is not meant to see. In its depths, perhaps, a nameless secret still sleeps. The fishermen along the riverbanks often tell a story that before the Aswan Dam was built, there were days when the river would recede to a great low. And on those rare days, they would see something emerge from the water. A colossal stone, like a face, like a pair of eyes. Not the famous Sphinx of Giza, no. This was different, older, quieter. It did not stand before the pyramids. It was buried beneath the water, as if the world had intentionally hidden it away. And the question echoes still. Could there be a second Sphinx? A forgotten sibling? To find the answer, we need not look to the riverbed just yet, but back to its famous brother on the Giza Plateau. The Great Sphinx, with the body of a lion and the head of a man, has lain there for thousands of years, its stone eyes gazing eastward, witnessing countless sunrises. Textbooks tell us it was carved by the pharaoh Khafra around 2500 BC. its face a portrait of the king himself. It is a beautiful, logical story, and one that is widely accepted. But in the late 20th century, an independent writer named John Anthony West, obsessed with the mysteries of Egypt, looked at the Sphinx and saw something that seemingly no one else had noticed. He didn't look at the face, but at its body, and at the limestone walls of the enclosure from which it was carved. He saw fissures, deep channels, running vertically from top to bottom. They did not resemble the horizontal, jagged patterns of erosion caused by wind and desert sand. They looked exactly like cliffs that had been weathered by torrential rainfall over a very, very long time. West was not a geologist, so he sought out an expert, Dr. Robert Schoch, a geology professor from Boston University. Schoch, at first, was highly skeptical. He went to Giza as a mainstream scientist, ready to debunk an amateur theory. But when he stood before the Sphinx, seeing the evidence with his own eyes, he was stunned. As an expert on rock weathering, he saw a completely different story written in the stone. The head of the Sphinx, which had been recarved several times over the dynasties, showed signs of wind erosion. But the body and the enclosure walls, carved from the same mother rock, told a story of water. The deep, rounded, gentle grooves, they were the fingerprints of heavy rains, of water flowing down from the plateau for millennia. This discovery sent a seismic shock through the academic world. Schoch, based on his geological analysis, came to a shocking conclusion. For there to have been enough rainfall to create such deep erosion patterns, the Sphinx must have been carved long before the time of Pharaoh Khafre. It would have to date back to between 7,000 and 10,000 BC, at the end of the last ice age. This was a period when climatic history tells us that North Africa was not a desert, but a lush savanna with frequent heavy rains. And if that is true, then the entire history we know would crumble. It would mean that 4,500 years ago, when Pharaoh Khafre built his pyramid, the Sphinx was already an ancient monument, having already stood there for at least 5,000 years, weathered by the rains of a forgotten age. So the pharaohs were merely latecomers. They found a great monument already standing and claimed it as their own, recarving its face in their image. So who came before? A forgotten civilization? A cycle of history we have never been taught? An Atlantis of the desert? These questions are no longer fantastical. They are born from scientific evidence, from the cracks in the official story of history. The water rises and memory sinks. The Aswan Dam, built in the 1960s, was a symbol of Egypt's modernizing ambitions. It promised to control the unpredictable floods of the Nile, providing electricity and stability. But the price was silence. Lake Nasser, a colossal artificial lake, slowly rose, submerging not just land and villages, but a vast region of memory belonging to the Nubian people. More than 20 major and minor temples, hundreds of archaeological sites, all were condemned to lie forever beneath the deep water. UNESCO launched an extraordinary emergency rescue mission, a global effort to relocate great temples like Abu Simbel. It was a spectacular race against time, a triumph of engineering and human cooperation. They sawed through massive stone blocks, weighing dozens of tons, numbered them carefully, then moved and reassembled them on higher, safer ground. The world watched with bated breath and sighed in relief when the work was done. But while the spotlight shone on the saved monuments, how many smaller legacies, nameless tombs, ancient settlements, were permanently lost to oblivion. In the race to save what was tangible, how many oral stories, how many myths were swept away by the water along with the last people who remembered them? There were waters that were not surveyed. There were tales, like the tale of the second Sphinx, that no one wanted to dig into. Because sometimes progress demands a sacrifice, and the first thing to be sacrificed is often the past. Ibrahim, an elderly Nubian man, retold the story like a recurring dream. He didn't just speak of a stone head, he spoke of a feeling. He said that when he was a boy, his father would row their boat into the middle of the current. And once, during a great drought, they saw a stone peak emerge from the water. A pair of eyes, not seeing, but seemingly piercing through time. That is the father of terror, he said. He is not angry, only sad, for he has been forgotten. Were these tales just folklore? Or were they the final echo of something much greater? Jean-Pierre Lauer, a famous French archaeologist known for his work at Saqqara, once heard this story on an afternoon by the river. Though he never recorded it in his official works, he quietly investigated. He compared Ibrahim's account with the old journals of 19th century explorers. They too had spoken of strange rock formations, of an object like a lion's head beneath the Nile. There were no photographs, no maps, only faint notes, like footprints in the sand. Private groups have tried to survey the Nile riverbed with sonar. Some have detected anomalous, shaped objects near the Aswan Dam, but they were denied access. The official reason: national security, heritage in need of protection. The mainstream archaeological establishment refused to acknowledge the findings. Was the Egyptian government afraid of confronting a history it couldn't control? Was it a scientific community unwilling to rewrite its textbooks? Or was there something that truly could not be allowed to be spoken of? If the Sphinx of Giza is the guardian of the pyramids, of the tombs of kings, of a history that has been written and sealed, then what is its forgotten brother under the water guarding? Perhaps it is not guarding a treasure of gold, but a treasure of truth. Perhaps it guards the memory of a world that once was, a world whose existence would challenge our own pride, we who consider ourselves the pinnacle of evolution. It is a reminder that all civilizations, no matter how great, have a beginning and an end, that the earth changes, climates shift, and what is desert today may have been a green grassland long ago. And the truth, sometimes, never rises to the surface. It lies beneath layers of sediment, awaiting an opportunity, or accepting eternal oblivion. Maybe the second Sphinx is real. Maybe it is not. But the existence of the question, of the possibility that our history is far deeper and more complex than we imagine, is itself a legacy. Not every mystery needs to be solved. Not every theory needs immediate proof. Some things, like the stone eyes under the water, exist only to make us humble, to remind us that we do not know everything. History is not a straight, carefully paved road, but a vast labyrinth. There are dead ends that lead nowhere, corridors that echo with the footsteps of those who came before, and doors that are locked because the key has been lost, or perhaps has not yet been forged. You are listening in the darkness. Perhaps your eyes are closed, or you are letting your mind drift with the current of the story. And now, imagine, you are no longer you. You are a drop of water, having just fallen from a high cloud joining the great Nile River. You feel yourself dissolving, losing your ego, becoming part of a flow that is larger and more ancient than yourself. You drift past fields of papyrus reeds, where white egrets stand preening their feathers. You drift past small fishing villages, smelling the scent of grilled fish and hearing the laughter of children. You drift past ancient ruins, where colossal stone columns still stand, defying time. You pass through history, not knowing who you travel with, carrying the memories of thousands of years in every molecule. Then you reach a place of still water, deep and wide. The current slows. The air becomes solemn. Beneath you is the shadow of something immense, ancient, and sad. You do not know its name. You cannot see its shape clearly, but you feel its presence, a silence full of weight. You feel it looking up, not at you, but through you, at a world that has forgotten it. Tonight, we have not uncovered a concrete proof, but together, we have opened a door. The door of curiosity, of humility before what we do not know. Let these questions gently lull you to sleep, because sometimes what makes us human is not the answers we have, but the questions we dare to ask, the willingness to believe that there are greater things beyond our understanding. And the underwater sphinx, if it is real, will remain there in the darkness, in the current, in history, between dream and reality. It will keep its secret, patiently, waiting. Or perhaps it is not waiting for anything at all. It simply is an eternal reminder of the infinity of time and the smallness of a human life.